All right, welcome in. It is the mailbag for January 2nd. This is the first Breer Report 2025. Happy New Year, everyone. And we are into week 18 now. No Thursday game this week, but we have two games on Saturday, full host of games on Sunday, and then we're into the playoffs for some team, into the off seasons for other teams. We're going to start again 2025 with this mailbag episode. Of course, you can check out the longer form mailbag on the mmqb.com. Be sure to check that out. Our first question for this week video mailbag comes from Don Helbig. That's at Don Helbig. Don asks, would the New York Jets seriously consider Rex Ryan as their next head coach? I would say the answer to that question is no. But the interesting thing about it is I think he does fit two key criteria that they're looking for, either in a general manager or in a coach. And I think the way that they're going to approach this after doing their vetting with Rick Spielman and Mike Tannenbaum, helping to run a lot of the process, is they're going to try to find the right person and build around that person. Now, it sounds simple, but a lot of teams go into a search with the idea we're going to hire a head coach first and then build around him. We're going to hire a GM first. We're going to build around him, or we're going to use a model. We're going to have a specific model that we're going to look to build out. And the Jets aren't doing that. The Jets are more like, let's find the right person. And whether it's the head coach, the general manager, we'll find that person, and then we'll match people with that person. I think that's the first step of it. But a couple of things that they're going to be looking for that are important in that person. I think one is an understanding and almost an embrace of the New York market, of the Jets franchise. And then number two is experience. And I would say that Rex Ryan checks both those boxes emphatically. He has experience. He's been a head coach in two different places, both in New York and Buffalo. He's had his ups, he's had his downs. I also think he embraces the idea of being in New York on that big stage. And the idea of the Jets being a circus doesn't bother him as much as might bother some other people. Now, of course, the issue is he's been out of the game for what is it? I think, and I have to do the math now in my head here on the fly. I think 16 was his last year in the NFL. So he's been out of the NFL now for 8 full years. That's losing a lot of institutional knowledge over that time. Doesn't mean he hasn't been watching and studying football, but when you're not in it at the granular level, you do lose something. And again, that's not to say it hasn't been done before, but I'd be surprised if he were their next head coach. I think they want to listen to him and hear him out, and out of respect for the job that he did there, went to 2 AFC title games. They do want to give him a shot at least throwing his hat in that ring. But in the end, I think they're going to end up going in a different direction and getting a fresh start with someone else. But I do think Rex Ryan's candidacy does bring into focus those things that are going to be important in their search, which again is an understanding of an embrace of the New York market and the Jets franchise, and experience, real experience doing the job. Our second question, this is from Rome. That's at Romy Rome. Will the Vikings trade J.J. McCarthy for the right deal? My answer to that question, Rome, is no. They love J.J. McCarthy. He did a great job for them during the pre-draft process. Obviously, it's why they traded up for him. And since then, he's checked every box. They really felt great about where he was through the spring and into the summer. And really the way they wanted to set it up for a rookie quarterback was in a way where they would have very real benchmarks that a rookie would have to hit for Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips and Josh McCown and all the guys on that side of the ball to even consider, putting them in a game in a real situation. And so he had started to hit those benchmarks. He had come along, and then he gets hurt in August. And, I think that creates a little bit of a tricky situation for them going forward. Sam Darnold's played really, really well. Again, this is a champagne problem, but Sam Darnold's played really, really well. And now they've got a roster full of guys who are in this position to win right now. And so, let's say they get to the divisional round of the NFC Championship game and it doesn't work out. And now they're coming back and they've had this 14 or 15 win regular season, and they've got a bunch of guys who are looking to chase a championship. Can you sell them on the idea of J.J. McCarthy? Can you say to them, yeah, we're going to walk away from the quarterback who just gave you this great season, who you've got this great belief in? Can they do that? like with the veteran players on their roster. It's a hard thing to do, even when you have the track record that Kevin O'Connell does in developing quarterbacks. And so I think the most a reasonable middle ground on this whole thing is to franchise Sam Darnold and go forward with him at that $40 million number for 2025 and continue to develop JJ McCarthy. And look, like if JJ looks great in May and June and July and August, and now you have a real question over who's your starting quarterback, then great. That's an awesome result. I think you want to take as many swings at getting this right as you possibly can. And I think bringing both guys back in 2025, and I wasn't in this camp before I thought, I looked at it and I said to myself, you know what, like this is going to be a great opportunity for them to transition over to JJ McCarthy and give him a great team and get that advantage of having the quarterback on the rookie contract. But Sam has played so well that now I think, a reasonable scenario is the Chargers in 2005 scenario. If people don't remember that, you go back in 04, Drew Brees leading up to that year hadn't played great for the Chargers. They didn't really believe that he was their long-term answer. So they go into his contract year, they draft Phillip Rivers, and they took Phillip Rivers fourth overall. The thought was that Rivers was going to beat Brees out. That didn't happen. Brees beat Rivers out in the spring and the summer, and then Brees has a fantastic year. They win 12 games and go to the playoffs, and the next year they were in this same scenario the Vikings are in. They franchised Drew Brees, kicked the can down the road for another year. Then Brees winds up getting hurt at the end of the year. It takes care of itself naturally. Rivers is their starting quarterback in 2006. Brees is with the Saints. We know how the rest of it turned out, but the point is the Chargers gave themselves the most the most swings at it, the most opportunity to get it right with one of those two guys. They wind up picking one of those two, and it works out for them, and it works out for the other guy too. This feels like that type of scenario for the Vikings, where I think there is a reasonable way to have both guys on the roster. It's expensive, because this franchise tag for quarterbacks is going to be over $40 million next year, but there is a reasonable way to manage this into 2025 where you have both guys. Our third question from this week from Ryan Flory, that's at Ryan Flory 6. What are the Titans' offseason quarterback options short of luring Tom Brady out of retirement? I don't think Tom Brady is going to go play for the Tennessee Titans at 47 years old. That's just me. Or be 48 next year, I believe, right? So I think Tom Brady is firmly off the table for the Titans. Look, I think that they're going to be looking at all things. Like they are now at the point where the decision is more or less been made. Will Levis is not going to be the quarterback of the future there. And so now you come out of this and you say, okay, like what's our next option? And I think you would look at somebody like Sam Darnold. If he were to make it to the open market, that would be a viable option for them. And they're also going to look in the draft. Now, the problem for teams like the Titans and the Giants and the Raiders that have quarterback needs coming into this year's draft and have high picks is that the class doesn't look great. So, when you're looking at it, what do you see from Shedeur Sanders? What do you see from Cam Ward? What do you see from Quinn Ewers? From Jackson Dart? Some of these guys, the story hasn't fully been written yet. Drew Aller, could he reverse course and come out from Penn State? There are some people who feel like he would be the most talented guy in this year's quarterback class if he did come out. And if he shows a little bit more, maybe he does. These are all questions I think that these teams are going to have to answer over the coming weeks and months. And I don't know that there's a viable answer for any of them out there. So I think the likelihood is the Titans add a quarterback in free agency or via trade. If it is somebody like Sam Darnold, assuming Darnold, if Darnold wasn't franchised, then maybe that guy can be a quarterback for the future. I think the more likely scenario is you come away with a bridge, and then you try to get your quarterback in the draft, and maybe the bridge is to get us to the 2026 draft based on what your evaluation is of the 2025 class. Again, it's complicated for all these teams that need quarterbacks this year, and the Titans aren't the only one. Again, I throw the Giants and Raiders in that group. It's a very complicated question because the 2025 quarterback class doesn't look nearly as strong as last year's class did. In fact, I would tell you right now, unequivocally, the top three picks in last year's class, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, would all be number one overall, no doubt about it, based on where they were, not now, but based on where they were in April, would be number one overall picks in this year's class without question. And I think you'd even talk about a Penix or a Nix or McCarthy. While I'm not sure those guys would have been first overall picks, yeah, I think you talk about those guys being maybe as good or better prospects at the time when they came out than anybody in this year's class is either. That's just what those teams going into 2025 with those quarterbacks needs in the draft are going to be looking at. Appreciate you guys coming out. We will be back with another Breer Report to look ahead to Week 18 on Friday morning. That'll be January the 3rd is 2025. Again, Happy New Year, everybody. Appreciate you guys coming out for all that we did over the course of 2024. We're going to make 2025 even better. We will see you guys on Friday.